Welcome back to Speaking from Ignorance.
I'm Daniel, a PhD student studying astrophysics.
I am Jack, a professional development coach and a social mobility advocate.
I'm Sid. I'm also an astrophysics PhD student.
I'm Sammy, owner of 4 separate hammers.
I am Alexander Lukashenko, former manager of Collective Farm, now leader of Belarus. There is no trouble in Belarus, and people who call me dictator, they are wrong. I merely rule by consensus of the... No. Actually, it's me,
I was
Henry.
excited for our guest this week. Are you telling me you're actually Henry Holmes?
Yes.
Using your chameleon-like abilities
Yes.
in disguise.
I am an actor, and since everybody else apparently is doing a PhD, I'm doing a PhD in Welsh language studies.
Nice.
That's not true.
That's not true.
That's not it.
And our guest this week.
Yeah, guys. My name is Aditya Perry. Most people call me Deech. I'm currently a structural engineer, and I live in New York, Brooklyn. But
Nice.
I know Sid from like last 10, 15 years, and yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Excited to have you.
So, important opening question. Was Sid just as big of a loser 15 years ago? Or is it
Yeah,
a recent-
dude. I mean, I don't know how tall he is now, but like back then.
Then things kind of changed.
You guys thought I was sitting down, but actually it's just me standing up.
There we go.
So, Aditya, you work as an engineer now.
Yup. So my job, in essence, we're a consulting company. We set up mobile cranes and tower cranes all over 5 boroughs in New York City. So I basically do a lot of coordination with clients and also a lot of CAD and math, basically, of where you can place a crane. And I also work with the government agencies, like the Department of Transportation's Department of Buildings, MTA, and Port Authority, to kind of close streets and coordinate timings and all that kind of stuff. So it's it's a lot of work, but it was the first job I got, so I just jumped on it. So my background is mechanical engineering and product design. So I graduated in 2019 from University of Pittsburgh, and basically I was home for 6.5 months, and then I was just losing my mind. And the real reason I wanted to go to New York is because I have been basically a part-time designer throughout college, and that's what I eventually want to be pursuing, something in that realm. But yeah, so I'm working full-time now as a project engineer, basically.
Nice.
But yeah.
That's quite a big first job, to be negotiating with, the government authorities, the Port Authority, placing a huge... That's a lot of responsibility in a first job.
Yeah, so I'm still training as an engineer role, but I was doing especially during COVID, most of these jobs had to the job sites had to be shut down or put on hold because you just were not allowed outside. So basically, they're losing a lot of money, and they wanted to prepare and get ahead of it once the city started opening up. So phase 1 of the reopening was New York City construction was allowed to work again. So everyone was trying to get back on there. So basically, all of April and May, I was just dealing with Department of Transportation shutting down streets for certain cranes to just go up and get back to work because people are trying to make up on time. Because the city's not ever used to being shut down. it makes sense. Everyone's just kind of got this hustle mentality here that we got to get it done and we got to get it done fast and right. So it was pretty hectic, but I'm picking it up. It's interesting. It's just definitely not something I want to do the rest of my career. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's where I'm at in my career as well. So what's it been like in New York, but also at home during the whole COVID thing? Because I've also been home for 4 months, but people here, taking it seriously.
Oh,
so
yeah.
We're all
How is
going
it
around
in
with
the
masks
States?
outside and stuff like that, even now, but we can go back to work.
Yeah.
But from what we've seen in the media, America's just on fire.
Dude, I feel like America could have this under control, but it's like that one kid who, you say, you gotta work together to get this done. It's oh, no, I'll get it done first myself. And then it's the rest of the team, falls behind. That's how it is. It's always gonna be like that. It's so I think we're gonna be stuck in this, position for, another year, or maybe 2 years, just slowing down everybody else. But, it was alright. If you guys probably... I don't know, I'll tell you a little bit more about my background. my family is like pretty traditional Indian, like very hardcore, like go to STEM, like do all this and that, and so like
Do an engineering degree.
yeah. So like basically like being home was always like a little bit more like it was so annoying. It was so annoying growing up there. Like just cause like it's like it's all competition, all about like school
Yeah.
and stuff, and I didn't really like it. So like now, especially after being home for 6 months, I was like, all right, I'm never going home. I'm just gonna stay in New York. And then the situation in New York got like really bad, and I saw like all my friends from college who are working in the city, they were leaving mid March, and I was like, why am I still going into the office right now? This doesn't make any sense. And I was like, all right, well, this is probably just a hoax. It's probably gonna go by. Like, all right, whatever. Like New York City's gonna bounce back within a month. And then I was like, all right, you know what? Like maybe I should take this a little bit seriously, because half my coworkers started leaving towards the end of March. They're like, no, like we're gonna go like quarantine somewhere away from here. And I got a tiny apartment here, so I had to like kind of. I was like, I need space. I need to go. So I went home. I mean, it was all right. My brother was back from college. He's a sophomore at Carnegie Mellon, and I mean that was chill. Like I didn't mind it at all because work from home was a lot more relaxed than I expected. Because I lose like an hour and a half, 2 hours every day just like getting ready and commuting to
man.
the office. It just
It's
like
like commuting.
driving me nuts. Like I mean, especially now, like this past week was like such an adjustment period. I was like, man, I was so used to like clocking in at 7:30, doing my work, clocking out at 4, just like chilling, playing video games and doing whatever. And now I can't do that. Now I gotta come home. I gotta worry about food. I gotta like take care of other stuff. So, but I took quarantine like pretty seriously and I used it to my advantage because I want to go back to grad school or go to like a boot camp for footwear design, product design. And I realized like I don't have the portfolio for it. I don't have the skill set. Like I might have the skill set. I don't have the background and education to like just whip out a portfolio. So I had to do a lot of catch up. I was listening to a lot of podcasts. Like I was listening to a lot of what's called like video lectures, basically like of people of professionals in the industry, like telling me about like what they do, like their story, how they got there, and their portfolios. So I just took a lot of time to like put into my portfolio and like my skill set. So I sent you guys my portfolio link.
Yeah, I've
after
got
all
it
this
right here,
release.
actually.
Yeah. So if you look on there, that website, like before quarantine, it was just a bunch of animation and cool like graphics and shit. It took probably like 10-15 minutes to load the whole thing, and I was like, you know what, like let me like just take like a week and like fix this up. Like I have time. Like I finish work at 4:30, and then all right, I'll put in like maybe like 4 hours every night. Like just crank this out. So I mean, I definitely like I liked it. I liked it a lot, being able to like kind of work on my side hustles and not really a side hustle, but my hobbies basically, and kind of like just
Yeah.
like really get
So,
to explore that. Cause
That's where like I can relate because being home for the past 4 months, I have to commute an hour one way to get to work, like about an hour, and that's from like public transport. And that's not ideal with the whole COVID thing going on. It's not ideal to be in public transport for an hour. So I was like, yeah, I'm clocking out start of March, and then I'm gonna go back to work this week, but I'm only going 3 times a week because I realized that I'm really productive at home. So being able to like wake up and then I'm not that keen, so I didn't start at 7:30. I like clock in at 9. But then I would just do like 3 or 4 hours there, and then just have lunch, and then do something, do some music or whatever. Like be able to focus on my hobbies at the same time as just swapping between work and other stuff. And then sometimes I'm like 8 p.m. and I'm like, I'll have another crack at whatever I'm doing at work because I'm just gonna wake up tomorrow and do the same thing again. Like,
so as PhD students, do you guys have to like go into the lab during COVID, or how are they working around that? Are you guys just completely online?
so
I
all of
assume
us
all of
don't
us
have any
don't.
sort of lab work because we're all
Theoretical.
like
Well,
yeah, we're more theoretical side. Like we usually just do programming, but I can tell you that a lot of the PhD students who are going into labs here in Germany still kind of have to do that, but they have to like make sure they're the only person there or like in a cubicle in one of the universities. They've actually spent tons of money to set up like personalized safe cubicles for I don't know, like n number of students, however much they need to fit, so that students can still take exams and stuff, like practical exams.
For the large part, people whose research depends on lab work basically have just been more affected and like been more delayed. Like, because at least for the first part of the quarantine and lockdown, there wasn't really anything you could do about it. Like, you're like, okay, the university has to close, and for now, like maybe we can talk about like adding like safety systems in the future so you can still go into the lab net for it to be safe. But for now, it's like pretty much stuck. I know that Birmingham had had an issue because the university actually provides it has a cyclotron, not a synchrotron, a cyclotron, and it provides radioactive isotopes for the for the hospital. So like obviously people still need to work the cyclotron despite the university being closed down. So there are still some people working in those kind of labs. But for the majority of the physics department, for the majority of PhDs, it's like, okay, go do your research at home. Even if you have lab work, it's like, I don't know, just focus on writing or reading background for the next few months.
Yeah, the stuff that's most annoying is teaching, because as PhD students, we all have like teaching requirements.
Like TAs, right?
So, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, because like as a grad student, you TA, right? So I'd be doing the same thing. I didn't do any this semester, but I have a few friends who did, and it's just all over like Zoom, and it just sounds like really annoying to have to do that over Zoom, because if you're there in person, you can just do so much more. Like you can go up to a whiteboard and just sort of show people what you mean, or if it's like a programming thing, you can walk around and just see what they're doing. But over Zoom, it's sort of like you're just talking to a camera. And then half the people, or most of the people, have their videos off. And when we give seminars and stuff, when we're giving talks, the guys literally say like, "Oh, make sure you mute yourself and turn your video off." And I'm like, "But now I'm just talking to like a screen." So like, there's just no engagement whatsoever.
I've done acting rehearsals over Zoom, which is fantastic.
Is acting your hobby? I remember.
Oh no, I am an actor.
Okay.
It is my job actually. So
That's cool.
Unemployed is my current status. But yeah, no, the UK is experimenting with socially distanced theatre at the moment, which...
Are they?
Yeah, that's gonna...
Experimenting being the key word.
Yes.
So are you guys going to be back like to normal like in fall semester then, or are you guys still going to be continuing the online template?
Well, the uni here is planning on opening up for the full semester, but keeping the majority of the lectures online. So
same here.
So we can go back to work now. I feel like the university is going to reopen soon, but I have a suspicion that we're going to see another spike in cases once everything opens up again, because then you're going to have people traveling back and forth, and
Yeah. No, I know my brother. He's got his school is kind of limiting the capacity like by 50%, so they made them pick one semester to go back and be on site.
Oh, okay.
Or do the whole year online. Which kind of, I mean, doing the whole year online is not a bad thing financially. It just...
What's he studying?
He's in a dual degree for computer science and art at Carnegie Mellon.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so I got a random question. Do you guys... Is this a podcast that started as a result of COVID-19, or have you guys been doing this for years?
Oh yeah.
We saw this like huge burst in podcast popularity, and then we used to have like coffee, like coffee. So we just talked for like an hour, and then Daniel recorded an hour or something of our thing, and then as we were talking, like, hey, we should make a podcast, and then we got that as a pilot. We're like, let's do it.
The pilot is a brilliant episode. Unfortunately,
never
it's so
releasing the
full of
pilot.
things that we should never have said.
You did like a year abroad in Florence?
Yeah. So
What was that like?
2018, not a year. This was pretty interesting. Like I graduated college with no internship experience. I worked some really diverse jobs. Like I was a valet, waiter, and delivery boy. And then I was a sales rep, and I don't know, just all kinds of jobs. But basically, this was basically my last summer, right? And I don't know about how it is out there, but especially here and like within my like personal like Indian community and all that kind of stuff, everybody graduates with like 2 or 3 internships, gets like baller jobs out of school, and then they're set. And I was not in that position at all. My first 2 summers had gone by, and basically I had applied for a study abroad. It was engineering of the Renaissance, so it's basically art history and kind of like architecture in Florence for 6 weeks. So got in for that program, and basically like I had to make a decision, and I had like a few interviews at like some like sneaker brands that I wanted to work at. And I was like, oh, maybe if I get that, then I can't go on this. And basically, like last minute decision, I just like, you know what, screw it. Like I'm in college, I'm gonna go abroad. Like I'm gonna have this experience, and then I'll figure it out later. So yeah, I did 6 weeks there. It was pretty incredible. Like I mean, we had like an apartment, 4 of us, and like basically traveled on weekends. Had like an 8 to 4 like schedule during the week. So I mean, it was a great experience. But yeah, no, I mean, that lifestyle out there is just like so different than what it is here. I swear, like everyone takes things like so much more lax, and or at least
Yeah,
they're very,
Europe is
very,
so
very,
much
very
more
good
relaxed
at,
than the US.
Yeah.
I mean, they're good at like showing that they're not stressed. I would say.
Yeah, it's low stress rather than saying lax. I think like low stress is a good way to put it. It's the sort of thing that like if you get your work done, just go home. That's policy here in Germany.
I think it's also, you know, the US is still like number one. It's pushing to be number one, and Europe's like, yeah, we've been there, we've done it.
Yeah, been there, done
like,
that.
like
Being number one is overrated. Everyone expects everything from you. Yeah.
I did not get the opportunity to do too much art related stuff in school, like until I forced myself to like make it for myself. So I wanted to get that like a little bit of an art school experience and like kind of just get it. Like I wanted to learn a little bit about art history, but it was mainly because I knew I wouldn't have the chance to like travel or do any of that stuff outside of school. And also this would help me kind of clear out my senior year so I could take more classes that I liked. Because I don't know if like you guys have any friends in engineering or whatnot, but in America, it's especially most of the schools like they still have a very traditional like engineering schedule. It's like you're just sitting in class, you got a lecture, and then you take 3 tests a semester per class. And for me, I realized that wasn't the kind of knowledge I like to learn. Like that's not the way I learn personally. I like hands-on learning, and you don't get that freedom
same.
in like a major like engineering until like the end, like your senior capstones and all that stuff. So for me, I needed to experience more of that, and I basically cleared out my whole schedule by going abroad because it kind of doubled over and stuff. So
Yeah, it's cool. You just take that initiative and just go.
what? But I'm just
Yeah.
interested in the sort of the degree experience in America with the concept of a major and a minor, because you can take other classes, right? You can do other things.
Yeah. So basically, the way it works is, I mean, you apply with a major or you apply undecided. Typically, like every major like has a respective school. Like if you apply undecided, you're in arts and sciences, but also stuff like biology, chemistry, like some like just like the general science majors and stuff. They're all fall under there. But also like art history, like actually no, art history might fall under art, studio arts, but basically like I applied for engineering. Basically, I didn't really have much of a choice. Like my parents, they say, "Okay, we give you the option." They didn't give me the option. They're like, "All right, if you want our help with, like, we'll help you
You
out."
can either do engineering or you can not go to college.
Yeah, that was kind of how it was. But I applied for engineering undecided, so I was in the engineering school. I got in for that. But if you don't get into the engineering school, you spend a lot of your time trying to transfer in, and basically that's your major. You can declare any minors you want. And basically the minors might be in other schools, so you just get like a certificate for that. There's usually like 4 or 5 classes, and yeah, I mean sometimes you might have to take extra time, like if you end up taking like a double major or stuff like that. In the case of my brother, he's kind of got it nice because he gets to have that STEM like background with comp sci and also like the art background because he's in both schools, but it's still 1 degree, so it's kind of how it works there. But yeah, when you're also like when you declare for like an engineering major and you kind of do the whole first year or whatever, when you have to transfer out of there or switch schools because you realize it's not for you, you end up adding time. And adding time in America is like 15-20 grand for a state college.
Yeah.
30-40 grand for a private school. So
Yeah, if you're out of state as well.
yeah. So
Don't screw up if you're out of state.
yeah. So my whole story was a little bit like my whole 17 years old and 19 years old was probably the most frustrating time of my life. Like I applied for engineering, and I'd say December of my senior year of high school, I was like, you know what? Like I'm taking 1 art class right now. This is fantastic. Maybe I should apply to art school. And I told my parents, they're like, only like 1 or 2 max. And I was like, whatever. I applied to like top schools. I applied to like the top school in the country for it. Rejected, flat on my face. And I was like, you know what? I'm stuck doing engineering. I stuck out the whole first year of my school doing engineering. and I was kind of like, this is so miserable. So I applied for a transfer school. So I applied to 5 art schools, got into 3, and I mean, these are really, they're top schools, like, but at the time I had to make that decision, like, if I'm going to transfer completely from engineering to art, it was kind of like, all right, well, you just finished like the hardest year of your engineering. This is like a whole career change, and the tuition is going to double. So is it really worth it? And is this the right decision to make? So that's why I brought this whole topic to be designed without a degree, because that's the decision I made. I decided that I'm not going to go to art school. I'm still going to learn the skills I want to learn, and I'll find a way to figure it out later. I mean, if later on it means higher education in art, like that's what it's going to be. But that was kind of part of my whole journey. I made that decision to turn down 3 of the top art schools and kind of figure out on my own. So for me, getting into art school was pretty incredible. Like I spent my freshman year like engineering, basically in America, like most schools now they're changing it, like the program, to be more hands-on learning. But for me, it was very much so like calc chem physics, engineering, code, and then you had like a writing class per term. So outside of that, I mean, those classes were so intense. Like I was struggling to keep up. My grades were my grades were shit. Like I was like, man, let me just get through this term. Like, but I was spending like my second semester when I decided I'm going to apply to transfer out of the school. I spent probably like 20 hours outside of class just building my portfolio, and I had to build up probably 24 pieces, completely new pieces to kind of show like my skills in like the fine arts. So like drawing and
that's like incredible though.
Yeah,
that you like took that time out to do it.
I mean, there's definitely like a loss. Like my grades were trash by the end of freshman year, but as most people's grades are usually not the best. But like my grade, I was playing in like an uphill battle to bring up my GPA and stuff, and that was like, I mean, it's whatever. It's a choice I made. Like I had to prioritize.
It's the past now, right?
Yeah. I mean. So I got a question about UK high school, right? Like, so how do you guys know then that physics was like, okay, I have to be a physicist? You know, like, is it just, are you guys all like taught like this is what you're passionate about? Like, how do you find your passion or stuff? Or are you guys exposed to like different classes outside of the typical math, science, and
I think it's a pretty terrifying.
Are you given like a taste of like the classes, like the courses that you can do in college before you go, or do you guys figure that out on your own?
I think it's quite bad, to be honest, because actually, in hindsight, I would have done completely different subjects my last couple of years of high school, if I could do it again. Because I did maths, physics, chemistry, and drama, but I would probably have done something like history, English literature, drama, and psychology or something if I was going to choose again.
Yeah, it's all very like, I don't know, it's all very structured. So if you want to study like physics at university, then you probably should have studied physics at A level, and you probably should have studied maths, right? And if you want to do that, then you probably should have picked, triple science or at least some science at GCSE, and it's all very like structured like that. So even when you're probably I don't even know how old GCSE students are. What is that? 14, 15,
16 when they finish.
Well, 16 when you finish, but probably 14 when you start.
Or 14 when they pick, yeah.
So yeah, you sort of have to like at 14 already know that you like science.
I mean,
if you want to do it at university.
To be honest, me picking drama when I was 17 was a wild change of direction. And I only picked it as a sort of like stress reliever to deal with the other 3 science subjects. And then it turned out I was much better at that than I was at all the other stuff I was doing.
I don't know, you're pretty good at
Were your
some
parents
of the
supportive
sciences.
of you doing acting like as a full-time?
Yeah, it took a bit of persuading.
I remember you saying, Holmes, that with convincing your parents, your mum was always very supportive. Your dad was supportive, but a lot of it came down to just them having to see you actually do it and do it well.
They had to see me actually do it and go, oh, he is actually quite good. To like, because there's the level of supportive parents going, oh yeah, I think my son's great at this, but then actually seeing them and comparing them to other actual people, because you've got to sometimes sit back and be unbiased and go, how good is he actually? Because it's like when you watch The X Factor or American Idol or something, and people go on and they're terrible. And you just go, why were people telling you were this good for this long?
See, I think that's a big reason why I went through with transfer applications, especially Indian culture, man. It's all about proving yourself. Like, it's all about like what will this person say, you know, like what will my
Dude, there's so
neighbor's
much
sister's
competition,
grandpa
it's
like say to you or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so for me, like I swear, like graduating high school, some guy said to me, like some guy from my temple, he said, "Oh, you're just going to Pitt, University of Pittsburgh? Like, why don't you go to a better school?" And I was like,
Yeah,
I didn't get into a better school. Like, I mean, I got like,
yeah, and it's like, what do you mean you didn't get it? You like not try? It's like, no, man. It's like,
It's like, I tried. It's just.
but they were
It's
more
like not
they were
for
more
everyone,
upset that I didn't get into the one art school I applied to. So I applied to RISD. Like RISD
Oh.
was at the time. I mean, it still is one of the best like art schools in the country. I didn't get in until my transfer college application. But basically, like that whole thing, like I mean, granted, I was like a hormonal 17-year-old. I was so pissed off. I was like, man, these guys are so insulting. Like my whole family is like kind of like, oh yeah, that's it. I mean, you failed. All right, go stick it out as an engineer. That's your career.
That's
And
hard,
I was
that's
kind of
hard.
like, no, I don't want that. Like, I gotta show you. Like, I do have what it takes.
yeah, you got to prove it.
And for me, like, my whole thing that drove me to do those like 20 hours outside of the classroom into this like goal that might not even happen was just to have that you know, that satisfaction of saying like, yeah, be quiet. Like, you were not with me when I set this goal. Don't just hop on the bandwagon. I mean, for me, that was so satisfying. Like being able to tell my family off, being like, yeah, I mean, I got this. This was for me. Like this and that.
And like you did it by yourself.
Yeah.
I've got
I mean,
a
that's a
friend
big
who
deal.
who I trained with as an actor, who's a few years older than me, and she's got a master's degree in business because you know she didn't get in straight away, and her family were like, "No, you need to go and do a proper degree." So she did that, and then she's had a business, and now she's an actor. And you just go,
Yeah.
like, it's
I mean, sometimes I think that's one thing it took me a long time to real. I mean, I still am thinking about it every day. Is like, oh, what would have happened had I'd gone all in into the arts? You know, like what would my life be? How long would it have taken me to get to New York? Like, would I even be like, would I be even stuck it out? You know, like I think about it all the time, but it's like you gotta understand that not everybody's gonna have that straight line path to get to design. Like I've been listening to a lot of these podcasts, and I'm learning a lot of these people didn't even go to school. Like people couldn't even afford to go to art schools for all this stuff. Like honestly, like if you guys are shocked by like the 15 grand tuition at American State College, I mean, all these art and drama schools, like they're some of the best in the world, but they're like 60, 70 grand. I mean, that was what I was looking at, like doubling my tuition. I was like,
Jesus.
that is not like, I mean,
it is crazy. It's like it seems to be a common thing that a lot of like art schools are more expensive, but you'll earn less.
yeah.
So you just go, what? What is this decision I'm making here?
Deech, it's absolutely fantastic having you on here. My first exposure of your work was your Instagram page, and I immediately saw that you had done some like fine art, some like pointillism, and some product design, and without even knowing who you were and your sort of background, I could immediately tell, you know, this person, you know, should either go into like engineering or product design. Those sort of like elements of you really clearly shone through. So if you're telling me that you've been working hard, you know, building this portfolio to sort of like demonstrate your sort of capabilities, I think you've done really, really well here. And
Thank you.
yeah, well, yeah. So you mentioned that recently you've been really ramping up this effort to sort of build this portfolio and sort of develop your skills by, you know, listening to podcasts, watching video lectures and stuff. I'm just curious as to what your sort of primary efforts have been so far and what you found helpful.
Okay, so let's pull me back into so post graduation, right? And like that last month, I was screwing around so hard in April because I didn't have a job. I was like, you know what? This is the last month of freedom to hang out with my boys and like whatever, just relax and like no responsibilities. Right after that, I didn't know what kind of jobs to apply for. Engineering, art, like what do I consider myself? I mean, I've worked as a part-time like graphic designer and part-time like apparel designer. I know like the entire graphic design suite pretty well. So I'm like, can I apply for that? Like technically, like is that something I can do? And the thing is, I have the portfolio for those kind of jobs. However, my degree doesn't say that I'm a graphic designer, so I can't apply for that. I found out towards the end of May that industrial design was kind of like this mix of like products, engineering, design, sketching, all these kind of things. And I was like, you know what? I should have majored in that. Like, why didn't I major in that? Why didn't I look into this like degree, like product design and industrial design when I was 17 or 18? And it's like, well, you can't think like that. You got to figure out a way to get back to there. So the efforts I took were when I moved to Brooklyn, I went to a few design meetups with industrial designers, and I'm just kind of like picking their brain and figuring out what software they use, what is it good to learn. Software they use is SolidWorks, which is pretty standard engineering software. I know SolidWorks pretty well. They use Keyshot to render. They also use Fusion 360 from Mac, which is a 3D software. And then they use like Gravity Sketch, so they start going VR. But the primary skill set that they're using is their sketching ability. How quickly can you mock up an idea for someone to see? And that someone is engineering companies. So I kind of found out that this whole discipline is like it's like such a crucial part of the engineering process, because they are who engineering companies will commission out. Not commission, but they'll have a contract with this like consulting company to mock up like hundreds of ideas. So then the engineers can prototype them with like molds and whatever manufacturing methods that they need to use. So I'm like, all right, well, I have an engineering background. My experience is not in my work experience is not in mechanical, but my degree is, and my projects are in manufacturing. How can I strengthen the sketching, the prototyping, the modeling, and rendering skills that all industrial designers have studios throughout school for? So that's what I've been working on mainly. So once COVID-19 hit, I've been focusing mainly on sketching, because my dream since I was young was always to design footwear. Like my parents, they would take me to BJ's to pick out shoes, because they would be like, "No, you don't need fancy, flashy shoes." And I was like, "No, I want flashy shoes. Like I want the nicest basketball shoes, like the Kobe's and LeBron's." My parents were like, "No, you can't do that. You gotta have like cheap shoes." So then for me, like that was always my goal. And that footwear design is like such a like niche part of industrial designers. Most of the people, like it's like such a huge industry, but there's so few jobs in industrial design, but that you got to be like the best. But like the best industrial designers, I would say, as like a non-industrial designer, they're the best footwear designers, because they know how fast to work. Like they can mock up ideas, so like they mock up so many different versions of an idea that you won't even think about it. So that's what I was trying to work on. I started keeping a sketchbook, which I can show you guys pages from, and I started asking people on LinkedIn, like, yo, like, tell me about what you did. Like, tell me about your sketches, like your projects. And specifically, I started refining my search into footwear designers only, because I realized that, like, once I'm working at this company for like another year or two, it'll be 3 years in the industry, like, I'm gonna have to start going all in if I want to end up going into footwear. So I figured, you know what, like, let me just keep building up the sketching portfolio. And I realized I hadn't really drawn in like 3-4 years. So after I got into art schools, I kind of realized, like, you know what, like, I know how to draw, like, I know how to do pen, pencil, paper, no, pen, watercolor, pencil, drawings, and like, that's fine, that's boring. Let me learn the graphics. So I spent the remainder of college just kind of mastering the Adobe suite, some 3D software, and like some video software. But like now it's kind of like, all right, come back to your roots, come back to what you were really good at. And I don't want to say I'm like really, really good at it, but I loved to draw. Like I loved to like do fine detail, like perspective pieces and stuff, realism, and
Hey man, it looks like you're really good at it.
no, but basically like I'm trying to like draw in their style, and then I kind of realized, like, you know what, just draw the way you think, draw like the ideation style that you have or whatever. So I'm kind of like using the mindset I had towards the end of college when I was doing my capstones, and that's how I ideate now. So that's what I've been working on. I haven't been like crazy diligent about it, but I put out a decent amount of shoes, a few shoes, and if you go on my website, you can see shoes from August when I first started using Blender. That's my primary software. It's free. That's why I use it.
Yeah.
But
Same here.
you can animate on there.
Sponsored
You can
by
do
Blender.
video editing and stuff. Like it's ideal. But if you
Blender's free. They're not sponsoring anyway.
What advice would you give to someone who was in sort of the position you were in, you know, like a year ago or a couple of years ago? What advice would you
Or
give
like
to them?
at the start of your
or
college
at the
thing.
start of college. What advice would you give to them to sort of move to where you're sort of moving to now?
Yeah, so definitely I would have done a ton more research into creative industries, like just understanding what you're gonna get into if you pursue like a graphic design or product design or an engineering. Like, what is your college experience going to be like? And honestly, that I don't learn very well from just like reading things online. I need to talk to someone who's been there. You know, like I wish, like I mean, I know that that's very kind of, it's not self-starter, like it's kind of like dependent on other people to like help you out, but honestly at that age you'd need to find like a mentor at that age, like a mentor who's been there and kind of like seen like, okay, well, if you go into an engineer, like you will probably make a good amount of money coming out. Like you will have a hard college experience, like you will have opportunities that you can choose to maximize upon, or you can just do the typical engineer like class route, and you'll still make it out, and you have an engineering degree to your name, so you'll do pretty well. If you want to go into something creative, talk to someone in different elements of creativity, like someone who's just a fine artist, someone who might have gone into film, someone who gone into graphic design. Talk about their jobs, like ask them the hard questions.
How would you go around meeting? Like, would you suggest meeting up with these people in person, like buying them a coffee, or would you email them, or
you don't have to do that. I mean, like, granted, like most of these people, a lot of creatives, like they move out to like big cities. Like, I mean, you're not even gonna be able to find. I mean, I would say like what I do now, I kind of like I feel like I act like a 17-year-old. Like I like literally just message people on LinkedIn, and I'm like, tell me about what you do. Like how did you get to Nike? How did you like what did you do? Like how were you like that incredible in college? Like like ask them the questions that like kind of make you feel good. I always say to myself like, don't be ashamed to ask someone like a question, because I used to be very shy growing up. Like, I mean, in high school and stuff, like I was very like shy until the end. Like I was scared to ask questions, like, because I didn't want to come off dumb. But I'd say these questions that like that you should know, like I mean, if someone says, yeah, I want to be a fine artist, like tell them like, okay, well, like, yeah, like my dad always would say, like, you're not gonna make shit money. You're gonna make shit money. You're gonna be homeless. You're gonna be one of those people in New York City who paint spray paint canvases and sell them for $100. That's it. That's gonna be your life. I didn't believe it at the time, and I mean, even now, like, I mean, it's a rarity seeing like what certain people make. But it wasn't like my dad was offering me a counter example, like, you know, like, see this industrial design probably makes 50, 60 grand, 70 grand. So who knows? Like, I mean, you don't. It wasn't that like, okay, well, you're into creativity. Here's another option that kind of combines the STEM and the arts. I wish somebody had said to me like, yeah, but I mean, like, don't give up on like that creative dream, or whatever. It's kind of like as much I hate to like, just keep blaming my like culture, my upbringing. It's that immigrant mentality that makes people limit themselves to um, careers in STEM, like careers in engineering, medicine, all that kind of stuff. It's because everyone's afraid that they're gonna have to be struggling to survive, and I get that. Like, my parents are immigrants, Sid's parents are immigrants. Like, we all like they are hard on you.
I'm still an immigrant.
Yeah, I mean, still, but you gotta like as hard as it is, you gotta go ask people outside of your culture, outside of like your circle, like outside of your town. Like, I mean, Sid I grew up in like the most like bougie white town. Like, literally most of these people are business owners, or they worked in like industry for a while, and then they ran their own business. They're very, very well off. It's not like you're gonna learn something about something as refined as creativity and fine arts from just asking one of these people. You got to go ask someone who's done it, like someone who's been in those shoes or whatever. That's something I wish I did more of, because and sometimes like when you ask these questions, people will be like, "Oh, you're asking the wrong question. That's like a bad question to ask." It's
then
like,
what's the right question?
But
Yeah,
like, the thing is,
like,
like, every experience I've had working like a shit job has told me like, okay, well, you learned this about this. I mean, at some point you gained some skill that nobody's gonna give you. Like, I mean, people could tell you this is how it is, but like nobody's gonna like.
It's not the same as actually getting it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, especially like, I would have told someone like told me when I was 17, I would have been like, yeah, like if you do graphic design, it depends where you work for. If you work for an engineering company doing their marketing and design stuff, you'll make a solid amount of money. Like, I wish I knew like the financials a little bit better, and I also wish I'd explored more of the programs that a school has to offer, and how the transferring within schools works, because that school, the three schools I got into at the time for transferring to art school, I got in for graphic design for one school, for film animation for one school, and then I got in for illustration for one school. Such a broad range. And the one question I asked was, what if I want to switch into graphic design from film? They're like, okay, you have to do 1 year of film, and then you have to go into graphic design. And I said, so you guys are just going to eat up 70 grand from me, and then
you're going to be able to change and do
It's
what you
like
want,
the same
yeah.
thing with the transfer again.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you just
And I also like, I think that it's definitely easier now, for my brother especially. He'll deny it, but basically I'm the older sibling, so for me to like kind of experiment with different creative fields like on my own, kind of opened up the doors for him to like start doing it in high school, while he had the chance to kind of explore and learn it. And now he's in a field that lets him combine what he likes and something that'll pay him a solid amount of money. So he got to kind of have that a little bit easier, like less pressure to kind of like get stuck in one industry. So
It is the
I
classic
would say,
older sibling thing, isn't it? You've got to
Yeah,
break
yeah,
the
yeah.
ground, and then the younger siblings kind
I
of
mean,
have an
honestly,
easier path.
it's a worst thing though. I mean, but I think also that the school is starting to evolve. They started making it from STEM to STEAM, so arts are included now. I think now it's also STREAM, so I guess basically just every
that
discipline's
just
gonna go
everything?
into everything's gonna go
yeah,
into
it's
that.
like there's no point in having the acronym anymore.
Yeah, but basically like when they do that, I mean, I've been out of high school for what 6-7 years now. Like basically like the school is like showing you like, okay, there are more career options, especially in America. I mean, there's a ton of career options. Like
Yeah, that's the thing. Like to go back to sort of, I guess like we called it like the immigrant mentality, but the idea that for us, because my parents are fairly traditional, but I think moving really helped me and my parents as well. Because like moving out of that place, my dad's job takes us to so many different places that my parents were really supportive of me doing like physics or astronomy, but even if I'd done like computer science. But I wonder if I'd done art, I don't know how supportive like my parents would have been. I think they would have still supported me through it, but there would have always been like, yeah, but you're not going to make any money.
Yeah, it's the difference between being like, oh, you can still do that, but it's like, you can still do that, but by the way, maybe you shouldn't, you know?
I did always, yeah, but I also always had like but you should do science. Like, you know, you've done science at school, you're pretty good at it, you should do science. And then going into it, I was like, yeah, I mean, maybe I'll do like chemistry or physics or something, and then like computer science. And then I got to the end, and I'm like, okay, if I look at my high school grades though, I'm pretty good at maths and physics, I guess. I'm the best at languages. Like, my best subjects by far were English and German. So I'm like,
I mean,
okay,
it's
well,
kind
I'm
of
gonna do
cheating
this.
because you can speak them both.
Yeah.
no, but
And
I
then
also think that it's not just in the culture. Like Indians always go into like
No.
STEM and stuff. Asians always do like same thing. But like, it's not just that. I mean, I think that well, you went to Council Rocks. You would have been going to Council Rock South, right?
Yeah, I would have.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say that like there were tracks, right? Like, and you labeled people based on what track they were in. Like, I mean, you were like, oh, he's in all honors. Oh, he must be that kind of person. She's an all AP. Oh man, overachiever. She's gonna go to an Ivy League. You know, like it was like it was kind of
Yeah.
like they labeled you, and that was what you were gonna be by the end of it. So I mean,
Yeah.
inevitably, like they also limited you. Like you were allowed one elective per year, and it wasn't like a block schedule where you get to dip your toes in all kinds of classes. It was, okay, this was your elective, you hate it, well great, you're stuck for 1
You're
year,
stuck there.
and then now you have 3 years left to pick a better elective, you know. Like it wasn't like very, it doesn't, I feel like hands-on learning needs to be taught when you're younger. And I also don't think I'm a very very strong like by the book learner, you know. Like I can't just like read a textbook and understand everything. I have to see it, or I need someone to like dumb it down for me. And I mean, it's bad. I know it's kind of like sounds lazy and all that stuff, but I think that some of the best thinkers are people who can see something and then think of something else and then apply it to a project and say like, oh, I saw this concept here, I applied it to this concept, and now let's make this magic happen. You know, like I've seen a lot of kids in college who had some of the shittiest grades, who came out with some of the best jobs, but also they learned how to work outside of the classroom by using their strengths, their hands-on strengths, instead of just their book smarts. You know, like I think that when you're younger, that's the time like you got to show people, not just read a textbook and learn.
Thanks for listening to the first part of our conversation with Deej. It was a pretty lengthy conversation, so we've decided to split it into 2 episodes. so keep an eye out for the second part coming soon. You can listen to us on Anchor FM, Spotify, and all your other favourite podcasting platforms, except iTunes. And you can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, and our website sfignorance.github.io.